Welcome back to another explainer. I am really thrilled to have you here today because we're going to do something a little bit different. And honestly, it is incredibly fascinating. Usually we tackle these massive data sets or sweeping historical narratives. But today, we're going to extract an entire universe of information from just one single static frame of culinary action. We're going to literally deconstruct a frozen moment in time to completely wrap our heads around a really complex mechanical and organic process. By the end of this explainer, you are going to look at the tools in your own kitchen in a totally different light for sure.
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? I mean, if you've ever tried to make fresh pasta from scratch, or even if you just appreciate a perfectly executed plate of food at a nice restaurant, you absolutely know this struggle. What is the actual secret to creating those perfect, beautifully uniform noodles? The kind that look like they were crafted by a master rather than just kind of hacked apart by a well-intentioned amateur? It's a question that plagues home cooks and professional chefs alike.
Okay, let's dive into this culinary forensics scene. Take a really good look here. This single snapshot contains absolutely all the answers to our opening question. We've got a wooden cutting board, a pale sheet of dough, a specialized tool right in the middle of the action, a hand guiding it, and the raw and finished elements just resting in the background. Now, at first glance, it looks like a simple action shot, right? But as you'll see, there is an absolute symphony of mechanics, chemistry, and human touch, all happening at once.
Section 1. The Quest for Uniformity. Why precision matters in the kitchen.
To really appreciate what's happening in this scene, we first need to understand the end goal. Basically, random, uneven cuts just won't cut it. Pun entirely intended there. In a culinary context, uniformity is defined as the quality of being identical in size and shape. But why does that actually matter? Well, it's not just about making the food look pretty on the plate, though aesthetics are definitely nice. It's actually a vital, functional requirement. See, uniformity ensures even cooking times. If you have some noodles that are thick and others that are thin, well, those thin ones are going to turn to absolute mush in the boiling water, while the thick ones stay raw and crunchy in the center. No one wants that. Uniformity guarantees a consistent, pleasing textural experience in every single bite.
Look closely at that pale yellow dough sheet right underneath the tool. Notice those delicate, perfectly parallel lines pressed into the dough? Yeah, that isn't random. The scene we're deconstructing here is basically a masterclass in guaranteeing that vital uniformity we just talked about. Every single strip of dough is exactly the same width as the one right next to it, completely setting the stage for a flawless cooking process later on.
Moving on to Section 2. Anatomy of the roller. Mechanical efficiency in action.
So how do we actually achieve that perfect consistency? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer brilliant simplicity of the design. We're looking at a multi-blade stainless steel rolling cutter. Just look at the gleam of the metal. Notice that sturdy, rigid structure connecting the handle right to the axle. But most importantly, observe the exact, unchangeable spacing between each of those circular blades. It's brilliant because the tool itself is doing the heavy lifting of measuring. The human doesn't have to guess at all. The stainless steel literally dictates the perfection.
Let's kind of contrast this with the traditional method for a second. If you were using just a single chef's knife to cut these noodles, think about that process. It is incredibly tedious. You make a cut, you move the knife, you try to eyeball the distance, you make another cut. It's highly prone to human error, which results in those varying widths we talked about earlier. But on the right side of our comparison, we have this multi-blade rolling method. It is vastly more efficient. With just one single pass, you're executing 9 or 10 precise parallel cuts simultaneously. A real game changer.
And the physics at play here are wonderfully straightforward. You don't need a motor or electricity or anything like that. The equation is simply downward pressure plus forward motion equals instant noodles. Those circular blades convert the forward push into a rolling slice, while the downward force ensures the blades penetrate all the way through that sticky dough right down to the wooden board beneath.
Which brings us to Section 3, the organic foundations. Basically, what we are actually rolling.
Obviously, a mechanical tool is totally useless without the proper raw materials to act upon. If we just kind of inventory the visual evidence right here on the wood grain board and the surrounding area, we can literally deduce the organic chemistry that's taken place. We see this smooth, pale yellow sheet, which is clearly our finished rested dough. We see these whole brown items in the background, those are our eggs. And we see this dusting of white powder on the hands and the board, which immediately tells us flour is the main dry ingredient here.
Let's look a bit more specifically at the top left corner. Those whole brown eggs resting on the white plate, they aren't just a pretty garnish for the photo. They're actually a massive clue. They tell us a lot about the nature of the dough itself.
This isn't just some simple, everyday water and flour mixture. The presence of those eggs implies a rich, pliable, egg-based dough. Exactly the kind that yields that beautiful pale yellow color we're seeing on the cutting board.
So the crucial point is that this single image actually implies an entire chronological process. It's like a timeline completely frozen in one frame. Step 1 happened in the past, mixing those eggs with flour to prepare the dough. Step 2 was rolling that dough out into the impossibly flat sheet we see in the foreground. And step 3, that's the present moment, applying that downward pressure with the roller to create our final shape.
All right, section 4, the tactile human element, hands-on control and sensory feedback.
We've talked about the machine, and we've talked about the ingredients, but there is a third, equally vital component here, and this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Look at the fingers gripping the stainless steel handle. Notice that powdery white flour strategically coating the skin? Well, that isn't just messiness, it's actually a strict functional necessity. Working with egg dough is, frankly, a really sticky business. The flour on the hands completely prevents the skin from catching and dragging on the dough if they happen to accidentally brush against it. Plus, it ensures a really firm, dry grip on that smooth metal handle.
Let's break down these micro-observations of the human hand interacting with the tool, because it's super interesting. First, we see a firm, wrapped grip which provides stability. Second, and actually this is absolutely key, look at the thumb. It's positioned perfectly along the top of the handle, functioning as a lever to exert that necessary downward pressure we talked about earlier. Third, the flour-dusted skin tells a whole story of active, hands-on mixing and kneading that happened before this tool was even picked up. And finally, the alignment of the hand and wrist straight over the wooden cutting board ensures that those blades track in a perfectly straight line.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, the final plating. From raw material to delicious result.
We're nearing the end of our deconstruction here. Let's move to and see how this builds to the final result right there on the white plate next to the eggs. Just look at it. It's a beautifully tangled nest of freshly cut noodles. This small pile of pasta right here represents the successful culmination of literally everything we've just discussed. The rich egg ingredients, the mechanical precision of the multi-blade roller, and that tactile guided human touch have all come together beautifully to transform a flat sheet of raw material into a ready-to-cook, perfectly uniform culinary delight.
It really makes you appreciate the engineering behind everyday objects, doesn't it? We've unpacked an incredible amount of information from just one single image of a pasta roller. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. What simple gadgets are hiding in your own kitchen drawers just waiting to transform basic ingredients into precise, tactile art? Seriously, next time you open that drawer, take a much closer look. You might just find a masterpiece of mechanical efficiency staring right back at you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.